Welcome back to Granja Caimito in the Pedroches Valle here in Andalusia, Spain. It is the second week of July. The cattle have grazed all the forage that was available, and we will now keep them in the sacrifice paddock shared with the pigs until new forage grows. When that is, depends on the rainfall. This time we are not doing any experiment at all and feed them well. That means we buy a lot of straw. Most of the cows are pregnant and we want them in good condition when they give birth. There are 27 cows in this herd. Let's assume we will receive 20 calves and no mother cow dies because of complications. Then we will have a herd of 57 animals. Here in Andalusia, the government has the idea of 0.4 animal units per hectare, thinking that the land does not support more than that. An animal unit means 500 kilograms, and that's basically one cow or a horse. A calf is kind of half of it, and a pig counts for 0.2 units. According to the government's formula, we are at 42.8 units for 45 hectares. 45 hectares times 0.4 is 18. So we should not have more than 18 adult cows. And according to that, we are severely overstocked. According to holistic management practices, we would be understocked, as we don't have the required animal density on the land to truly regenerate. I've watched a video of Alan Savory talking about his visit in Spain. Thanks sending me the link. And he talks about the government's fear of animals in that. And yes, they are afraid. We were told before that we have too many animals. This is going to be interesting. Someone may say, but you are overstocked. Your land does not support the number of animals you have. Yes, that is true. It does not support it. But the animals are a tool to fix the land, so that it can be improved. And that is why we are bringing in a lot of additional carbon that had been taken away from the land in the past. And then we are going to look at the true stocking capacity, which is different from stocking density. As we want to use our backhoe for a different task, we filled the compost making area with a lot of straw bales, so that we can remove the forks and attach the bucket again. We keep the bales with the wires so that the animals are slowed down a bit and focus a bit more on the pail that is open. This method does waste straw, but we will get it back after a while in the form of compost that we want to put on the nearby berm of the swale where nothing has grown so far. So it is definitely not a loss. Even the straw that got placed outside of this area, for various reasons, adds some carbon to the whole area. Every bit helps. The temperatures continue to be around 35 degrees Celsius, 95 Fahrenheit. I was wondering what happens in the summer heat when there is sufficient moisture. And here I can find the answer. Because we have been planting tomatoes and vetiver and installed drip irrigation, the grass that was there is now also regrowing. It went to seed, and now it's greening up, and it's actually growing. So I'm thinking, if we had more retention of moisture in all the paddocks, then certainly our forage, like over there in the background, would also grow in summer. It's not so much that we need warm season grasses. It's lack of moisture because of lack of humus. We have started to use our Kanban-inspired board to better plan and coordinate the work. The first step was to gain some overview about what we have currently in progress. These printouts are from a book called Lean Farming, which describes how a Danish dairy farm uses checklists and instructional sheets to ensure that the same work is being done in the same way to maintain quality and avoid mistakes. We have started to do something similar and also have begun to do some time and motion studies. We also have created ourselves an irrigation plan. After some more sessions, we figured out what the most pressing needs are, and also identified what helps to improve fertility. The green cards mean that we need to break the big steps down into small tasks that can be completed in less than a day. There is no point to get stuck with a flow system that is congested and not moving at all. To break a big thing down into manageable pieces, we use something that software developers may recognize as a story map. It's a simple way to determine the minimum amount of tasks that will deliver a working solution, and in additional lanes further down, more and more details and improvements can be added. We also started a little bit to estimate the size of tasks to understand better if we need to make them smaller. It is important not to estimate how long something might take. If you do it for the first time, how would you know? So we use t-shirt sizes and how we understand the task to determine its size. There is a time component too, but it's very coarse, like a couple of hours or a few minutes.
¿No? Quitar la planta, enterrar los tubos y ya podemos cerrar la zanja. Bueno, antes de cerrar la zanja podemos meter la manguera a ver si entra, ¿no? Por si tenemos que...
We have received a few more Paulovnia trees to fill the gaps at our zone B1, where we want to start with the laying hens. The lavender and the tomatoes from the seeds that I saved from a store-bought tomato are now big enough to be planted out. For the tomatoes it might be pretty late, but as the cold temperatures will come late, here it's not that important. The horses every morning gather at the opposite side of the waterer for the cows. It seems like they are waiting for their friends. Unfortunately, this week also had a sad moment. As you can see, this sheep is bleeding heavily. Our sheep are not used to being handled, and that means that in the open one cannot walk up to them. Good opportunity to practice throwing a rope. However, it took us many attempts, and finally Angel got lucky. And now we can treat the wound with alu spray, which is to seal the wound. The attack ripped off the wool and some of the skin, but the flesh underneath seems to be intact. This wasn't an attack from a wild animal, but it was one of our own dogs. When Angel brought straw to the horses, he had to open the gate. And as he was alone, and the dogs answer much better to my command than anyone else's, and the sheep presented themselves at the same moment the gate was open, The dogs did what they do best and attacked the intruders. The chase was quickly stopped, but as the dogs are good hunters and have the advantage of being in a pack, that was the result. Only 2 days later, we found the remains of what the vultures left. Sadly, that wasn't the only loss this week. This is one of the trees that received way too much water. You can see it getting limp. Over at the wannabe food forest, I find a lot more peach stones, and as I turn around, I was able to spot a rat jumping out of the big tree. Of course, I couldn't catch it on camera, but now I know who is eating the peaches and leaves the stones so neatly peeled. And yes, we should definitely get the irrigation pipe out of here and tidy the place up. We left it there in order not to break it, as we don't have anything to roll it back in. We might also get one of those. We feed the horses bales of straw under the trees. That way we are adding carbon and horse manure to the soil. I mentioned it before. This is going to become our maternity ward for sows and their piglets. There will be a wire mesh fence all around it, and then we are going to have smaller fenced-in areas. We can assign one of those to a sow so that she can build a nest and give birth undisturbed. After a while, we can rotate them all through the areas in pretty much the same way as rotational grazing works. And over there in the distance, we want to build the mandatory pig shelter, where we have to keep all our pigs in case of an infectious disease, like African swine flu or similar. That shelter is supposed to double as a workshop for dirty jobs until we need it for the pigs. There will be a straight run along the existing fence, wire mesh on both sides and some 2 meters wide. The last remaining moisture in the big swale where we keep the pigs and the cows is gone. It's all dried out by now. So the pigs need to wallow in different area. They do enjoy the straw bedding and the company of the cows and bulls. turnips did not like the heat. They have been receiving water, might have been sufficient, but they don't like the heat. But on the other side, the giant cabbage does work. It is growing, and there in the center where the irrigation is, it's even bigger than in the other areas. But then again, I say this every time so that there's no misconception. This is not to have a lot of cabbage for human consumption. This is a holding area for pigs, and what grows right now is just there so that when the pigs come later in the autumn, they have something to play with. And of course it's food, but it is for the pigs. So this is not to produce a harvest, it's just so that this area is covered with something. And of course over time it will improve the soil in this area. So every time we do this, it's going to be a little bit easier. But again, it's not for human consumption. Now I turned on the irrigation, and as you can see, it is wetting the whole area. But then you also see that it's blowing against the cabbage. I told the guys tomorrow they should put a metal post in there and tie the sprinkler to it so that it irrigates from the top. That should not be the way it is. It is Sunday and I need some rest too, so I won't do this, but tomorrow morning the guys will take care of this. This plant with the yellow flowers has shown up in all places where our modification of the landscape has retained a little bit more moisture. So you see it here, and if I turn left and follow the temporary creek, you will see more of it. And even there in the distance, there are some of it. So this is a change. We also see this in other areas where I may go next. All the green spots of Bermuda grass that you see here, they live off the water that is stored in the ground or what they can reach with their roots. There has been no rainfall so far, and of course we are not irrigating here. So this is all natural, just based on keeping the animals out and letting the plants develop. There inside of the temporary creek is still a little bit of water, and I guess it's because right next there where the solar panel is, there we have the well. It's an 8 meters deep shallow well, and of course this is full of water, so there is no wonder that we have standing water here at the surface. But that is what the plants all around are also tapping into. Let's go to the other side of the seasonal creek and see how the pond is looking. The pond is looking great. Of course it loses water, but it appears that it is only losing water due to evaporation. It's not losing water into the ground, at least not to a certain or to a significant amount, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, it either means that the ground left and right is impenetrable, or it means that it's saturated. But I would guess it's impenetrable. because of all the dryness over all the years and the compaction. But at least this is a start. So we have a water source here, or a source for moisture, so that the areas left and right can benefit from it. But then from the level of the water all the way to the surface here to the left, that's a long way down, because the terrain is rising and the roots of the plants would have to grow a lot in order to tap into this water source. But I have a feeling there is something happening, because all the sizzles that are now there, and we didn't have this before the pond existed. So something is going on. This plant with the blue flowers, where all the butterflies and bees and other creatures are humming around, is new. This is in the seasonal creek. It is a plant that is how do I call this? This plant emits a very interesting smell. It might be medicinal or has some other use. I don't know what it is. It showed up here in the seasonal creek and also in a different place, but also part of the creek. So this is also some improvement. It was not there before we made the modifications. This oak tree has been in bad shape for a while and finally toppled completely. This is before the entrance to the future cattle sorting facility, which is to the right. To the left there is a circle with a waterer. The plan is to plant a number of palovnia trees along the fence line and protect them from browsing cows. That's for next spring. Over time, most of the palovnias will get replaced with something else. This is the very first watermelon that we were able to harvest. We actually had to harvest it. You can see the hole to the left. That is from the birds picking at it. And the ants were also going at it. So we took it, removed the ants, and tried to see how it will taste. It wasn't that sweet, but yes, you could enjoy it a little bit. While I was checking on the palovnia trees here at the side of the second swale, I spotted this bull calf outside of the enclosure, where we keep the pigs and cows, and alone. I let him be for the moment, and after I checked on the trees, I tried to move him out onto the driveway, with the intent to open the gate and let him back in. But he went straight for the fence, and did what he did to get out in the first place. I remember he had been doing that before elsewhere, and so we now know that we also need another hot wire at some 80 centimeters, waist high, to prevent that from happening again. I need to order the material for that. We also took care of a few other jobs that we had postponed for so long, and removed this thing from the future dog enclosure. We will continue to work through our long list, and also try to use as much of the material we have accumulated before starting anything completely new. Now that Angel is officially back from paternity leave, Juan is going on vacation, and once he will be back, we can then hopefully start building our first egg mobile for laying hens. Sorry for the creaking sound. The accelerator of the backhoe is broken and the guys have to control it by using the brakes. Not pretty. This concludes the video for the second week of July 2021. As always, I hope you enjoyed this update. Please keep the encouraging and helpful comments coming. Please come back next week. See you soon here at Granja Caimito in the Pedroches Valley in Andalusia, Spain.